I myself not consider as a Tibetan or Buddhist, but rather just another human being.
At age 60, I lost my freedom. At age 24, I lost my own country. Then last 50 years, constant, heartbreaking news. But then, comparatively, my mental state, quite okay, quite calm. So I think the peace of mind really makes differences about our health and day-to-day life, more happier.
His Holiness once called himself the unluckiest Dalai Lama for having spent more time as a refugee outside his country than inside Tibet. But his greatest achievement, in my view, has been to transform his exile into a gift for humanity. He has said that he is half Buddhist monk, half scientist, meaning that he has tried to understand the human mind in order to awaken our capacity for social, emotional, and ethical learning.
I have 4 commitments. Number 1 commitment, I'm a human being. I always believe entire 7 billion human beings, we are same human brothers, sisters. And according some scientists, we are social animal. So individual's life depend on the community. So now today, entire 7 billion human beings are one human community.
For more than 30 years, you've been a guiding light. You've inspired us, encouraged us to look inward, to look outward, to be curious, to ask big questions, to open our hearts, to bring compassion and science together.
My memory of that first meeting with His Holiness and my dad in 2000 at the Destructive Emotions meeting for Mind and Life was a total transformation of the person I had known from my life up to that point. My dad went from someone who was a hard-nosed scientist and everyone was pretty much wrong until proven right, to someone who was so open to new ideas and to how emotion and the knowledge we have about emotion could actually transform our well-being in deep ways. Not just alleviate suffering, but create something more profound, like emotional awareness. The project we collaborated on with the Stamen design company, the Atlas of Emotion, supported by His Holiness, was a totally new way to think of emotion. He said a single thing that transformed how both my father and I thought about emotion, which was we needed a map to get to the new world. And now we need a map in order to understand our emotions.
Well, the very notion of using a map, a visualization, to approach and enlarge our understanding of emotions, that was a radical step for me. And my whole experience with the Dalai Lama it changed my life in many ways, but most importantly, it changed how I saw what I, as a scientist, could do in the world, what I could reach for. I could see the constraints that my own intellectual Western science upbringing had imposed upon me, and a path to get out of those constraints and see and begin to comprehend the incomprehensible.
Your Holiness, we first met in 1992. And at that meeting, you challenged me and you asked why the tools of modern neuroscience couldn't be used to study kindness and to study compassion in the same way that we were using those tools to study fear and anxiety and stress. I made a commitment to you on that day in 1992 that we were going to pivot our scientific work toward more virtuous qualities of the mind and the heart and do everything we can to help put compassion and kindness on the scientific map.
When I first met you, I was telling you about how we can support children by teaching them how to manage and explore and understand their negative emotions like sadness and anger. And you said to me, that's a good idea and needed, but you switched the conversation and you said to me, why aren't you focusing on positive emotions? You said to me, the mind is like a muscle, and it will seek what it's used to, what it's experienced at. The more time we spend with children on positive emotions, the more likely they are to seek them. And this short conversation changed the nature of my work for the next 20 years.
Because of his inspiration and role model, I got very involved, started Colorado Friends of Tibet, and also started the Peace Jam Foundation, which is an organization that I founded with my husband, and we have reached millions of people around the world. And when we met with the Dalai Lama, he was the first Nobel Peace Prize winner we met with. We asked him, would he do this? And he said, yes, I love the idea. Nobel Peace Prize winners mentoring youth to change the world, but don't just do it with me, do it with other Nobel laureates.
From the very beginning, your vision for a holistic education that draws from the best of both the Western and Tibetan tradition has guided our work here at Emory University. This vision, the first of your 4 main commitments, seeks the convergence of science and spirituality in order to promote basic human values. With your guidance and in collaboration with the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, we have been able to implement successfully a 6-year-long science curriculum in Tibetan monasteries and nunneries through Emory Tibet Science Initiative.
My work has been with people diagnosed with cancer and their family members. And since about 1998, people in my program have developed a training program in mindfulness meditation based on the mindfulness-based stress reduction program for people living with cancer. And so we've been developing that intervention, testing it, and conducting research, publishing articles about that intervention for the last 20 years, and really have seen remarkable transformation in people living with cancer through learning the powerful skills of meditation, mindfulness, self-compassion, these sorts of virtues and ethics promoted by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. And then personally, I've been involved with the Mind and Life Institute for just about as long. And my fondest recollection was in 2008, when I was invited to present my work at the Mind and Life Institute at the Mayo Clinic in the States, and His Holiness was in the audience. And so I presented my work, and afterwards he came on stage and presented each of us speakers with the white scarf and thanked us for our presentation. And at the time I was heavily pregnant with my daughter, who just recently turned 12, in fact. And I was enormous. And he came, and when he put the scarf around my neck, he also touched my belly, patted my large pregnant belly, and gave me a smile and a wink, kind of a nod, which I interpreted as a blessing for my daughter.
His Holiness has always emphasized the value of science. He's even gone to the extent of saying, if science cannot validate some of the insights that we have from the great wisdom traditions, he will favor science. Because of His Holiness's championing science and consciousness, the world is a better place.
No matter how many books we have read or written, No matter who we are or what we believe, what matters most is how we receive one another, with kindness, with pleasure, and with full recognition that we are in the presence of another being of great worth.
The concept of warm-heartedness, concept of compassionate attitude, is not simply a religious matter. It's a universal value. The way to keep all this knowledge, not just through prayer or ritual, but we study seriously. First level of knowledge is hearing, reading. The second level of knowledge, serious thinking, including debate. That brings conviction. Then, you see, familiarize, that we call meditation. Then you gain gradually deeper experiences.
You visited our center in 1979. There was a retreat that was ongoing here, and so as part of your visit, we had you come and address the retreatants. And after that talk, there were some questions. I remember one young man raised his hand and he said, "I feel very discouraged. I've been meditating, but I don't think I'm making any progress. I don't think I actually have a capacity to develop wisdom or compassion." And I thought, Your Holiness, you looked even a little bit surprised, and then you responded to him by saying, "That's just wrong. That's wrong. Every human being has the capacity for growth, for change, for developing wisdom and compassion. We all have that ability." And there have been so many times, Your Holiness, when I have thought about that comment. First of all, it helped that young man a lot. And I think of it, every single day when I speak to somebody who is discouraged, which is probably every day. People will display that feeling, I have no capacity, I have no ability, I have no heart. And I think, that's just wrong. I say that to myself when I feel discouraged. And I especially say that these days as I look at the world and sometimes actually feel despair. That things can never change, that we can't seem to get it right, to grow. And I say to myself, that's just wrong. So I want to thank you, Your Holiness, for all these many years of service and teaching and tremendous inspiration for so many. You are truly one of the great lights of this world.
And the religious harmony, that's my second commitment. All major religious traditions, different philosophy, but all carry same message of love. Sometimes I sort of express all those religion is religion of human being. So therefore, all religion emphasizes the best thing about human mind, that's love.
It's a little while since this photograph was taken, about 15 years ago. And we've both aged a little bit since then. Both a little wiser, I'd like to think. But your visit that day to Belfast was tremendous. It was a real inspiration for us. It offered an endorsement of our work in Peace Players, and it was a privilege for anybody who was there that day. We continue to use the power of this to bring young people together, to help bridge divides. And some of the children who were there that day are now young leaders in their communities that are helping to address issues of divided society, racism, prejudice, and so on. So our work continues both in Northern Ireland and globally. We're reaching further and deeper into communities, and like you, we continue to work for peace.
When I was 22 years old, my friend Kevin Koval and I traveled to Dharamsala, India, for a short audience with His Holiness. It was established by his friend, Brother Wayne Teasdale, who was the mentor of Kevin and myself. And Kevin and I told His Holiness about this new organization we were trying to start called Interfaith Youth Corps that would bring young people from different religious backgrounds together to do service projects and engage in positive social action for the healing and improvement of the world. His Holiness held our hands, his eyes twinkled, he patted us on the cheeks, and he encouraged us to use our various Muslim and Jewish inspirations to found this organization and to build it out in the United States and beyond. And I want to say to His Holiness, thank you so much for that early encouragement, because 22 years later, I still lead that organization.
I remember dearly 20 years ago going to Dharamsala, and I spent 7 days up there in MacLeod Ganj in the company of your good self and with many ministers and the young people there. Well, a spiritual moment, and one that I shall always remember. And I also remember leaving MacLeod Ganj, going by this tiny plain, and the Nengjung, the medium to the oracle, his sister asked me would I give him a lift on the plane, and I said of course. Well, the turbulence was terrible. The turbulence was frightful. We bounced across the firmament, knee to knee. It was so close, white-knuckling it. And he dug into his bag and he took out this mala, which I have traveled with for these past 20 years. He blew on it and he put it round my neck. And so I travel with these beads in memory of my time there and your teachings. And I also travel, of course, being a good Irishman, with my wooden rosary beads. And they go hand in hand with me. And that's what's so wonderful about you, because you have such compassion for all faiths, all religions. And we need that deeply in our society these days. I remember a reporter asked you, he said, what is your religion? And you said, kindness. Well, kind sir, your Holiness, I wish you the greatest joy and love from all my family.
You've been such a magnificent force for goodness in this world, and sometimes in ways that perhaps in the moment you have not even been aware of. So I'd just like to share one little anecdote which illustrates this. We were together at a Buddhist Christian conference at Gethsemane Abbey in Kentucky, the home monastery of Thomas Merton. And there were 25 Trappist and Benedictine monastics there, and 25 people from the Buddhist tradition. We had been speaking together, as a group in the chapter house over quite a few days, just in dialogue and conversation. And then one day after one of those meetings, you left and were walking down the hallway, and I was a little way behind you. And at the end of the hallway, there was a statue of the Virgin Mary. You stopped for a moment, paid respects, perhaps offered a prayer or two, and then continued walking. Well, in seeing you do this, it struck me so forcibly because it's not something that I would ever have thought of doing. I grew up kind of with a Jewish background, but then now for the last 50 years been very committed to the Buddhist tradition and practice. And so for me, the statue of the Virgin Mary represented something other. And so it wouldn't have occurred to me kind of to stop and pay respects. But when I saw you do that, it was so heart-opening for me, because I realized that for you, there is no other, and you were paying respect to those values which we all hold in common. So it was very transforming for me in that moment, and heart-opening. in a very significant way. And then interestingly enough, at the very end of the conference, when the abbot of Gethsemane Abbey was summing up the week, he also commented that he had seen you stop and pay respects to the Virgin Mary. And he said that in seeing you do that, that was more meaningful for him in terms of the interreligious dialogue than any of the words that had been spoken during the whole week. And so sometimes just your expression of that great, open, kind heart, which doesn't make an other of anyone. It embraces all of us, in our common humanity.
We have so much to feel grateful for him, because His Holiness has really made the ancient teachings and philosophy and practices of Buddhism relevant and vibrant even in this 21st century by bridging science and insights of Buddhist tradition and showing to the world, and particularly to the younger generation of the traditional Buddhist societies, that our inherited tradition of philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and contemplative practice are not just historical inheritances, cultural inheritances, but they are actually very relevant and powerful even in this very modern, globalized 21st century digital world.
Aside from the wisdom that one derives from listening to his words and being in his presence, there are some very special qualities that make him so unique amongst religious leaders of our times and beyond these times. One of these qualities is precisely his playfulness, for which he is so well known. I remember in particular in Seattle, being on a platform together with him and Desmond Tutu. The event was called Seeds of Compassion, where they were teasing one another and playing with one another as if they were children. And this is not just an endearing quality in terms of his personality, it's something far more profound. There is a tendency with all of us as we tend to get older, and especially those in positions of authority and respected by others, to become a little bit staid, even a little bit caught up in our own self-importance. And if you are considered to be divine and revered as such, the danger is surely all the greater. It is precisely this childlike quality of His Holiness that ensures that he is not a victim of such kind of ossification. It guarantees his eternal youthful curiosity and makes him relevant to everyone, regardless of age, time, or place. As a result, it is not only a joy to be in his presence, it is also a learning process, if one is open to it, of how each of us should try to be able to retain that youthful spirit, that openness, that curiosity, to engage the world without prejudice, without rigidity, without any staidness.
We love the fact that you use your sense of humor to connect to the people that you in your world. We've never been more inspired by another human being, and we thank you for the reminder that in this imperfect world, we can still find an awful lot of happiness.
Healthy mind, healthy body, very close connection. Usually fear and anger often go together. More fear, more distrust, then more fear, more frustration, then anger comes. So constant fear, anger, hatred actually eating our immune system. Other hand, keep warmth here, warm-heartedness.
The Dalai Lama has been an inspirational role model, a role model of justice and reconciliation, of peace and compassion for the international community, where he is a Nobel Peace Laureate, for the Canadian community, where he is an honorary Canadian citizen, a spiritual leader who received the Templeton Prize, and an inspiration to young people all over the world who are looking for a role model at a time when countries and peoples are troubled and fractured.
It is quite remarkable in a world where military force, money, and greed dominate our lives, that there is someone who is teaching compassion and forgiveness and understanding. It's a bit like finding water in a desert. In a world that often feels like it's getting darker, to have a few people who are coming in and switching their torch, their flashlight on, allowing us to see clearly what's going on and giving us something to aim for. Thank you so much for what you teach us. Also, I feel very lucky to have been living in a world that has you in it.
You have impacted my life in so many ways from the time we met nearly 22 years ago through today, with your humanity, your compassion, your wisdom, and your foresight in how to be empathetic, how to create an empathetic world, and how to honor human rights. I know you so understand the importance of this document and how my grandmother, Eleanor Roosevelt, had so much to do with it. When we met, I gave you a copy of it, and you remarked that you know the whole thing by heart.
Please pay more attention about our inner value. And that value is concerned not difference of color, not difference of social background, whether rich or poor, no differences, and also not to depend on faith. Even without faith, these human good quality by birth already there. In fact, compassion, the seed of compassion, is a biological factor. We are a social animal. And on top of that, the very way we grown up need others' care. My main concern is ecology of Tibet. I feel, you see, Tibetan ecology not only concern for 6 million Tibetan people, but you see, because all the river, major river, which cover Pakistan, India, and Burma, Thailand, and then Vietnam, these countries, Mekong River used to come from Tibet. Then China, Yellow River come from Tibet. So you see, Tibet, people usually call roof of the world.
I'm in total awe of your life of service. For all these years, you have dedicated yourself to advocating for the rights of people, animals, and the environment. And I only hope and pray that we shall emerge from this pandemic, and people, especially corporate leaders and political leaders, have a new and better understanding of how everything is interconnected and how our disrespect of animals and the environment has been a contributor to this coronavirus pandemic and also to climate change.
We have practiced aggressive nonviolence in the spirit of Hayagriva. We have saved tens of thousands of whales and dolphins and seals and sharks and countless numbers of fishes through our approach, which we call aggressive nonviolence, an approach that was inspired by His Holiness.
For many years, he's represented the Tibetan people in their fight for freedom, and he's done it to the worldwide respect of the world. But let me tell you one story. Decades ago, I was in Lhasa, Tibet. At that time, you were not allowed to have photographs of His Holiness. And I was walking through a market, and here's a picture I took. This man held up his child, and he held up a picture of His Holiness. And he motioned to my camera. Even though he knew that he might risk arrest, he wanted me to take the picture. Afterward, I asked him, why would you risk prison to have the picture of His Holiness? And he said, because they have to know. One of the great moments of my life was be able to, along with Marcel, to give a copy of that picture to His Holiness. It hangs every day over my desk in my office in the United States Capitol. Because every day I look at that and I think of what the Dalai Lama stood for peace throughout the world, for human understanding, for bringing all people together, no matter their nationality or their religion. And he touches everybody's conscience, no matter who you are, as he works to promote universal values of dignity and compassion and forgiveness and tolerance.
I just wanted to wish His Holiness the Dalai Lama a happy 85th birthday. This birthday celebration is going to be celebrated by people all over the world virtually this year because of the pandemic. But this is important, not just personally in terms of wishing him happy birthday, but to reiterate our strong support on behalf of the people of Tibet.
Greetings. I'm honored to speak here today in wishing His Holiness the Dalai Lama a happy 85th birthday. During this time of celebration, I think this is the perfect opportunity to reflect on the accomplishments of the Tibetan people in their fight for freedom and religious liberty. As Americans, we share a common cause with the Tibetan people in our value of human rights, religious freedoms, and cultural preservations. As many of you know, those of us in Congress share an overwhelming support for Tibet and the contributions the 14th Dalai Lama has made towards peace, nonviolence, and religious understanding. Further, it is in the interest of myself and my colleagues to recognize the genuine autonomy of Tibet and cherish the deep bond between the Tibetan and American people. Consequently, last year, I introduced a resolution recognizing these ideals and accomplishments of Tibet. The resolution also calls on the Speaker of the House, Ms. Pelosi, to extend an invitation to His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, to address a joint session of Congress to discuss peaceful solutions to international conflicts. Sir, I'd like to say personally that it would be an honor to host you either over video or in person in the United States. I will end by wishing His Holiness a happy birthday and hope that this time can serve as an opportunity to further strengthen the U.S.-Tibet relationships for years to come. Thank you.
As we celebrate your birthday, Dalai Lama, we wish you great happiness, and we want to give you thanks. Thanks for the tenacity that you've shared with the rest of the world to continue to fight for what's right, for religious freedom, for the people of Tibet to be able to practice their faith freely and without oppression. When I last saw you in November, I was very heartened to hear you say that you thought you would outlive the Chinese Communist Party on their control of Tibet. That they've been controlling the region for a long time. You haven't been allowed in, but that you're going to outlast them, and I believe that you will. Happy birthday, and thank you for your tenacity in fighting for the people of Tibet. God bless you.
I was very intimidated when I was coming to Dharamsala to meet you because I didn't know how it would go or how nervous I would be. But I remember you immediately put me at ease with your laughter. You made me feel comfortable. You laughed at my Tibetan, Niemin la Arifien, or Jola Arif, and Kusudebumbin. So I spoke to you in some Tibetan, and you were very impressed and laughed with your assistance. And you're also very caring and very compassionate and almost fatherly. I remember you took my hand as we spoke, and it was a very lovely gesture. I also remember that, I asked you some difficult questions because I was struggling with a few issues, and you gave me some very candid and very direct and very wise advice. I talked to you about the notion of potentially coming to the Tibetan Autonomous Region and not being sure about what kind of things I would see there, because things might be orchestrated in a way that didn't give me a true sense of your people or your land. And you thought about it, and you said to me quite directly, you said, I think you should still try and go. And you said, it is important for me to see with my own eyes your people, your land, and to see their condition. But you said it is also important for your people to see me, because that way they would understand and see with their own eyes that I have not forgotten the Tibetan struggle, that Canada has not forgotten the Tibetan struggle, and that the world has not forgotten the Tibetan struggle. So what I will say to you on this, your birthday, Your Holiness, is that I committed myself to doing just that when I was with you in March of 2018. And 2 years later, I renew my commitment to you that I will always try to be a strong voice as a parliamentarian for you and for the Tibetan cause and the Tibetan people, for the middle way approach, for the issue of Tibetan linguistic freedom and Tibetan religious freedom. It is very, very important, and thank you for inspiring me to keep up this important work, which has been your life's work.
Tashi Dalai, happy birthday, Your Holiness. I'm so delighted to participate in this global celebration of the 85th birthday of Kundun, His Holiness the Dalai Lama Tenzin Gyatso. I was honored on the first occasion to meet His Holiness when he came to Canada, and I helped to present him with honorary Canadian citizenship in 2006, recognizing his friendship with Canada for many decades and his championing a core Canadian value, our belief in pluralism. On that occasion, when I first met His Holiness, his thoughts were for people who were living under great pressure, in particular the Tibetan refugees in the colonies of Arunachal Pradesh in northeast India. And he asked me to, as Canadian Immigration Minister, help create a special resettlement program for many of them to come to Canada. Thanks to his wisdom and insight, we were able to eventually implement that program. As a result, hundreds of Tibetans from AP have now made new lives here in Canada, keeping fidelity to His Holiness's teachings by maintaining and transmitting to the next generation the magnificent and ancient Tibetan culture and Buddhism. So, Your Holiness, on behalf of all of your many friends here in Canada, we wish you a joyful celebration and thank you for your service not only to the Tibetan people, but to all of humankind.
半个多世纪以来，达赖喇嘛尊者一直处于流亡状态。但是，除了我们大家都看得见的，他在推动世人关注藏人的人权以及环境的破坏，和推动全球关注中共在沦陷区不断迫害人权之外，这些人所共治的贡献之外，我个人觉得达赖喇嘛尊者在更高层面上，在人们内心提升上，同样起着更为重要的作用。经常听达赖喇嘛尊者演讲的人我们都知道达赖喇嘛经常谈这个慈悲心啊、和平心啊、爱心啊这些东西。事实上，这个佛家一直以来是倡导这种世界的和平，少一些杀伐纷争。凡事要从内心去提升、去修行。
And I know that you said long back that your favorite birthday present was to know that people are doing things in the direction of your different life purposes. You know, human values and world religion understanding and Tibet and saving Tibet and especially Tibetan culture. Words will not express how meaningful and how grateful we are for your kindness and your wisdom. And Oma Guru Vajadara Manju Shri Vakinda Sumati Sasana Dara Samudra Sribada Sarasiti Hum. We definitely think so.
Thank you so much for your years of wisdom, your friendship, and your love. I know that my life has been a much better one for having His Holiness the Dalai Lama in it.
I'd like to wish you birthday blessings, congratulations on your 85th, and to let you know how deeply grateful we are for your dedication to bringing more compassion, more love to our world. Blessings, blessings, blessings.
To help bring your message to the world, I traveled to almost all the communist countries, the Middle East, and Latin America. And ever since then, I've been continuing to bring your message to the world with my website project, Study Buddhism. It's through the website and social media that our team is working to further all of Your Holiness's commitments, now in 31 languages, and it's reaching millions of people all over the world. So once more, I wish you a very happy birthday with my prayers for your long and healthy life. And I pray that in all my lifetimes, I may be able to serve you as a messenger of the Buddha. Tashi Delay.
I send you greetings, good wishes, and love from myself and the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. Thank you for being you.
I know my life has been immeasurably enriched by the friendship I have shared with this great spiritual leader. On this special day, I send him my love and best wishes, and I want him to know how pleased we all are that he, of all people, happened to be the Dalai Lama.
Your Holiness, you have said love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. At this time of great trial, this is the most important message: how we can create a sustainable, humane, and ethical world through compassion. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. We wish you peace and continued good health.
We just want to wish you on this very special occasion a wondrous and blessed experience of Buddha nature, a fuller experience of compassion, and we pray that your prayer for more compassion in the world may manifest itself in a way that touches all lives, those the least amongst us to all, and that this world would find its way to a more just, a wiser, and more compassionate place. We thank you for your inspiration and your leadership in all of these things.
Your Holiness, it's Michael Fitzpatrick wishing you a happy birthday.
This is a birthday poem for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. A small entreaty. May I be nothing but the peeling of a lotus, papering the distance for you underfoot. One lone skin to lift and fashion as cap to cradle your bowing head, an ear to hear the great horn, a slipper to mount the temple steps, one lone skin bearing this wish. May your hands be full of nothing. May your toys scatter the sky, tiny yellow bundles, bursting like stars, like smiles, and the laughter of a bell. Happy birthday.
It's with great pride that I wish him all good things and many more years. And both for my husband and I, we continue to be both his admirers and his good friends.
As Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, it is a pleasure to join millions of Tibetans and all peace-loving people to wish His Holiness the Dalai Lama a wonderful 85th birthday. The Dalai Lama is a messenger of hope whose spiritual guidance has been central to his lifelong mission to advance harmony among the world's religious traditions and has been a vital force for securing human rights and human dignity for Tibetans and people around the world. On this special day, I recall our bipartisan delegations to Dharamsala to meet His Holiness when we saw the aspirations of the Tibetan people firsthand, particularly in the faces of the beautiful school children we were honored to meet. The sacred bonds of friendship between the United States, the Dalai Lama, and the Tibetan people is ironclad and critical to ensuring Tibetans can practice their faith, speak their language, and celebrate their culture, free from fear of violence or persecution. On behalf of the United States Congress, may we continue to work together to advance the noble cause of peace. May His Holiness's birthday bring happiness, joy, and a year filled with peace and security for all Tibetans and for the world. Happy birthday, Your Holiness.
Your Holiness, Laura and I send our very best wishes on your 85th birthday. I admire you, I care for you, and I love you.
Your Holiness, Hilary and I are delighted and honored to join your many friends and loved ones in wishing you a very happy 85th birthday.
We, like so many, are deeply grateful for you, your inspiration, your wisdom, your example, and yes, your friendship. You've spent your life helping others, promoting understanding and kindness, and encouraging people around the world to do the same.
You've always understood that approaching people with an outstretched hand is far better than with a clenched fist. And we need that understanding now more than ever.
We hope you find meaningful ways to celebrate your special day and many, many more into the future. Happy birthday.
Your Holiness, I just want to wish you a very happy 85th birthday. Over your many decades as a spiritual leader, you have embodied the value of compassion, and you have inspired millions around the world to speak up for the freedom and dignity of all human beings. It has been a great pleasure of my life to meet with you over the years. Most recently, several years ago in India, where we talked about the importance of promoting peace in the world. And today, as a global pandemic causes the most suffering for the poorest and most vulnerable among us, and as too many leaders are using this moment to stoke hate and division, your message of compassion and unity is more important than ever. Your example reminds us that to live a meaningful life, we must serve others, care for others, love others. It's a message that I return to as a source of strength and purpose. On behalf of myself, Michelle, and our daughters, we wish you a joyous birthday and health and happiness for many years to come.
God bless. I suppose it would be remiss of me if I didn't sing a song. It is your birthday. So forgive me if I'm off key. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Your Holiness. Happy birthday